Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, an insightful conversation with Mike Shore. He's the Vice President and General Manager of Enterprise at Axon. But first, this message from our sponsors. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Mike, I do appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. Just tell me a little bit about, maybe first let's get a little bit of like your professional background. How did you get involved in this world of security and fighting against organized retail crime?
Yeah, sure. So my background's, I've been in technology for a couple decades now, which is crazy. Time flies. Joined Axon about 9 years ago. I was in software in the Bay Area, and Axon, at that time known as Taser International, was starting their technology group, really primarily around body-worn cameras and evidence.com. And, at the time it was actually just about when the events of Ferguson, Missouri had occurred. Mm-hmm. And, you could see the path that this technology could really positively impact society in terms of transparency and truth. Made the jump to Scottsdale, Arizona, where we're headquartered. And through sort of the journey at the company and our expansion into markets beyond public safety, we started this group called Enterprise, serving, call it the most violent workplaces in the world. Through that exploration and customers reaching out to us, we ended up focusing on retail, healthcare, critical infrastructure, and logistics as where Axon is expanding into. And through that, been leading the enterprise team over the last 5 years. And really enjoyed sort of my time learning about the security industry and bringing the solutions that we lead the market with in public safety to these folks, and really leading to like positive outcomes in terms of deterrence, de-escalation, transparency, and a lot of these tools that have been sort of tested in the field, being ready to adopt in these industries such as retail. Yeah.
So when we talk about Axon, you're talking about body cameras, tasers. What give us the full rundown of that for people who may not be as familiar with it.
Sure. Yeah. So the company's formerly Taser International. We're about 30 years old and publicly traded, and have an ecosystem of products at this point. But really started with tasers. Our founder, Rick Smith, who's still our CEO, had a couple acquaintances killed in a road rage accident, set out on a mission to protect life. As a technologist, found the inventor of the electric gun and commercialized it. Brought it to the market and found a fit with public safety. And since then, we really just followed the customer. When tasers were sort of being quickly adopted, we were getting sued all the time. Our customers were getting sued all the time. What are you doing hitting people with a stun gun? We put cameras on the bottoms of those weapons to understand what happened. And that really got us into the just the idea of recording critical incidents. Just listen to our customer again. And, that eventually led to a better perspective on the officer, managing the data. Suddenly was the next challenge. We said, okay, we're going to go put public safety data in the cloud. People said, Taser, you're crazy. This is never going to work. Cops are never going to want to be recorded. You're never going to put public safety data in the cloud. Lo and behold, that was a good idea. And in that time, we've expanded our SaaS solution, evidence.com, throughout public safety. So now we're serving every single major city in the U.S., international customers like the London Met or Sao Paulo Police or Gujarat in India, and have expanded not only markets but products too. And so things like in-car video, drones, records management software, additional applications, VR training. We've got a pretty robust solution for public safety at this point. And then 2020 and COVID. Putting it simply, we say like people stop following the rules. There's a whole lot to that, and a whole lot of hard truths around socioeconomic conditions, inequality, inflation, and just the world and what's happening. And you've seen an uptick in crime and violence, and really these settings called to Axon said, hey, you've dealt with some of these really challenging, sticky situations. can you take a look? Maybe there's a way that you all can help. And so we started with security, putting body-worn cameras primarily on security personnel, and we've sort of continued to invest and adapt our solution to further serve these folks. And so we just released Axon Body Workforce, which is our first sort of retail designed body-worn camera. And then on the software side, with evidence.com, you've got a very comprehensive ecosystem that could compliantly manage data. And that's where, we really believe, Axon's going to be able to provide a whole lot of value in the industry in terms of helping private organizations collaborate with law enforcement. Law enforcement is mostly on evidence.com, as are DAs and public defenders. And so gathering, assets in real time or post-event, and easily making those available to law enforcement. We've seen some really tremendous success stories early on, and we are expanding, as I mentioned, products and markets, and enterprise is sort of our evolution beyond public safety.
Yeah, so started helping public safety, and then more into the private side. How does that work? Not like into the nitty-gritty details of it, but
sure,
sort of at a high level when you say, well, you've got body cams on officers, and you've got cameras, you even mentioned on the bottom of tasers. When you move that, what does that look like when you move that into the private sector? You're talking about body cams on retail workers?
Sure, yeah. And body-worn cameras, fantastic product. We're seeing great outcomes in terms of, the increased deterrence, better de-escalation, obviously transparency and a record of events of what occurred. But what we really like to help educate sort of the market is this is a much broader solution. Call it a camera on somebody's chest, like strapping up, your sort of analog camera there, and just recording incidents. There's a whole lot more to be considered, right? There's policy, there's privacy, there's how do you manage that data off the camera and data, and even report on it, or get data and analysis off of it. And so not only is that piece of hardware, a significant part of the solution, but also if you look at the broader ecosystem, what we really spend our time and our investment on is, having an end-to-end workflow that works with other technologies in your stack. And so, what's behind that body camera is evidence.com, the sort of world's preeminent digital evidence management solution. And that's been time tested in public safety. And so, some of the most call it like newsworthy and unfortunate incidents, over the last decade. You want to talk about like the Boston Marathon bombing, or the George Floyd case, Freddie Gray in Baltimore, and on and on. Managing those sensitive assets, gathering investigatory digital evidence from other sources. If you think about the Boston Marathon bombing, you had multiple law enforcement jurisdictions. You've got federal agencies. You've got bodega cameras, cell phone cameras, body-worn cameras from different agencies, gathering and making sense of those digital assets. That's really what we do really well, in a compliant way that's fully audited, and that's really like our secret sauce is that workflow. And so having a time-tested, compliant workflow for the world's most sensitive data, taking that to the private sector, and really helping you make sense of all of sort of the inputs that you may have. It's not just video. It could be other things. It could be, hey, is there a 911 call in the store from someone making a call? Is there something on social media? Is there a threat? Is there an access control alarm? And so any of these inputs, making sense of them, packaging it up, and then being able to present it with a bow on it to law enforcement where they work, we've seen as like really powerful. The same set of challenges in terms of investigations around sensitive incidents with multiple perspectives. And so how we've brought this technology over into retail is, you mentioned a body camera, is, yeah, for sure. You've got security wearing body cameras, you've got APLP leaders, we've got retailers putting these on store managers and even associates. And there's a lot of cases where not only are you going to be able to deter, de-escalate, but simply say, like, people behave better on camera, on both sides of it. And we know it's time tested, and timing's good on this one. We've got a piece of research coming out. We studied 16 retailers with body cameras in a year-long study, and we are, super excited to share those results. But you've also got to think about this in the context of your total sort of technology stack. And Axon's participated in efforts like RELA's Vibrant Communities Initiative. And that's where you had 3 different technology vendors, ourselves, LVT, Aura, basically have an end-to-end workflow, serving retailers and the 2 selected counties around that. And I just want to be clear when we sort of talk about this message of, okay, there's body cameras. Body cameras are, an optional part of that workflow. There's tremendous benefits to it, but really the heart of that workflow was data management and receiving video assets, packaging up a case, and passing that on to law enforcement.
It's not just the collection; it's the organization of all of it.
It's the
making it useful data, not just data.
That's right. That's right. And so, that was actually the call it to opt into Realize Vibrant Communities workflow. You had to participate. Like, it's the software workflow that was really, call it the driving sort of engine of that thing. And so, you could bring assets from your own video or another body-worn camera or whatever it may be. But really, we think the opportunity for simplifying how you manage data in security is not only there, but it's really going to just I think completely enable security leaders to what they view as science fiction nowadays to reality. It's there. It's not only is it available, it's being used daily by public safety and now retailers all over the world. And that is really, when you think about, I think the value creation in the industry and solving some of the hardest challenges around crime and violence and packaging this up for law enforcement to go investigate and actually getting it prosecuted. There's a whole lot in there. There's obviously technology, the multiple vendors. You've got the retailers, you've got law enforcement, you've got the community, you've got the public. And so, this isn't a single vendor approach. This is really a community and an ecosystem. And sort of our approach at Axon is, remain open. We're going to integrate with folks. It's a cloud-first technology. And we think sort of our core competency is making sense of a lot of these disparate data silos, and it just where we think technology is headed and success in other industries is really going to be around making things work together well, and ultimately it's about the customer, right? The retail security leader at the end of the day has to use all this sophisticated technology, and it's got to be pretty damn easy to use. And so that's really, our responsibility. That's what we take seriously in our mission to protect life. Bringing it all the way back to what we're all about. Our sort of company's moonshot is to reduce deaths between public safety and the public by 50% over the next 10 years. And when you look at not only how many of those are occurring in public settings, but you also just look at the number of deaths in retail and healthcare and some of these workplaces, like, it's a pretty scary stat, and we're pretty committed to solving for that and recognize, it's going to take a collaborative approach in the industry.
It's a lofty goal and an important goal, and one we hope you succeed in achieving, and we really appreciate your insight today. Anything that, from all of this, if our audience should take away one thing about where we're headed in combating organized retail crime or combating, retail theft, based on this technology, what's the one thing you want them to take away?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, a collaborative approach. Not only as a industry professional and, talking to others in the industry, but also, giving feedback to the vendors. Hey, this is what we want. This is where we want to see the industry head. And we certainly listen to that. And what we've heard is, hey, we want this technology to talk to each other. We want that ecosystem approach. And so that's, where that comes from. And then I'd say on the vendor side, the importance of collaboration, listening to the customers, and working together to solve their challenges. I really do appreciate the security leaders, we've gotten the chance to work with and learn from over the last couple of years. These are sticky challenges. I'm an optimist, and I think we're going to be able to solve them. So,
yeah. Mike, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for sharing some of your expertise with us.
Sure thing, Marty. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. That's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks, as always, to our presenting sponsors at LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop one about 3 times every month. You can also find us on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes below. Thanks, as always, everyone, for being with us, and keep up the good fight.